Good morning. It's now 2:30 in the morning. I think I found the new studio standard for reference open back headphones, and affordable at that. Hey, welcome to Project Beats. My name is Joven. Just a quick one. If you like these types of videos and like to support the channel, help me out by hitting subscribe. Really helps me keep making these videos. We're wrapping up the new studio series from Audio-Technica. I had quite a bit of time with R50x and R70xa now. Here are the specs on the screen. Just hit pause if you need. I've already mentioned what I feel about the build quality from previous videos, so no changes there. Except I already swapped out the headband for the R70xa and I'm loving it. This one is the Capra strap. Huge upgrade in terms of comfort and functionality. The original headband, as you saw from the first video, it has a magnetic connection. So when you pull down to adjust, it just snaps off. So I don't know why they went with that direction, but this is a much better design, so you can pull down no problem. Although now, if you have it on, you have this sort of big gap on your head. I don't know how you feel about that. I don't mind that. The function is more important to me. And I can now confirm, if you saw in the first video, I was confused because there's no left and right marking on the cable. I was not sure where to put it, but I can confirm now that there is no wrong way of connecting the headphones. So whichever way you put them, the panning will always be correct, which is kind of cool. It's the first time I saw something like that, I think. So yeah, for this video, I won't be teaching you how to EQ like the previous video. You can go ahead and check it out if you want. I find the video takes a bit too long, and I'll just make a separate video on how to mix with headphones, maybe DAC amp pairing and all that. If you'd be interested in that video, this is a good time to subscribe. So I had my audiophile friend help me out with this review. He will be coming from a point of view of a music listener, not necessarily a mix engineer point of view. So here's what he has to say about it.
Okay, I've just compared the 50X with this standard HD650. I mean the standard for studio mixing headphones, open back. I therefore conclude that R50X is way better. In terms of when it is EQ'd, although even if it's not EQ'd, I would still prefer the 50. Yeah, simply because this sounds a bit, more narrow, more in-your-face vocals. Initially, I like with this headphone, but yeah, after listening the R50X, the separation of the instrument, it's wider. I could feel more air compared to this HD650. I guess that one for both 70xa and the 50X, I think has more air into the sound.
Actually,
more air. And it gives me more of the feeling of listening to an open back. It gives me more like, I know it's an open back, not just literally the air outside, but also within that music. Yeah, so I think the new standard should be the 50X.
I agree. Okay, so we have similar points that we agree on, and some points we are totally opposite. But then again, you have to account for your personal HRTF. We both listen to different gain levels as well, so you really have to try the headphones for yourself and see if your findings are similar. Some of the things we agree on is how we think the R50X and R70xa should be the new studio standard in terms of performance and especially for its price. Also how they compare to the HD650, 600, which is a much more expensive headphones. Even my wife agrees. She likes the R70xa more than the HD650. And she actually owns that HD650. And yes, I have a wife. This is not for show. Alright, so initial impressions remain with both of these with a few things. The R50X without EQ is just the perfect balance in my opinion. Out of the box, it gives you that upfront, well-presented clarity and detail that you don't really have to mess with. It's lively, it has substantial and punchy bass response, smooth mid-range, and clear, airy top end. To be honest, it's really all you need if you just want a mixing headphones and you don't want to spend a lot. No amps needed as well, so that's an added savings. If you are more of a music listener and not much for critical listening, that upfront clarity and detail I can imagine it can be a little bit aggressive, so it might not be to everyone's liking. In terms of sound quality or tuning, the R50X leans more towards that analytical side, less hi-fi sound or music enjoyment listening. I am personally impressed with it, but overall, you'd have to decide what you think about it. If you look at the raw measurement, the R50X actually is pretty close to the OE Harman 2013 target, which is my personal preference in terms of correction EQ for mix use. I do also like switching between Harman 2018 linear or diffuse field with a 10 dB tilt when I need to check against a more neutral tuning. But as it is, the R50X measures relatively well. If you auto EQ for Harman 2013 target using the squig link, you will find the EQ correction is very minimal, which is ideal, and I also feel it becomes more refined and clear with correction on. Compared to the HD650 without EQ, the R50X has a bit more low end and a wider sense of space. It felt a bit more exciting to me as well. And it's half the price of the HD650 if the HD650 is on sale. So if you're on a budget, I feel like this is a no-brainer. If you're sort of dipping your toes into open bag, or you're a creator, you're mixing a little bit, you want more reliable mixing headphones, this is easily my most confident recommendation. If you're thinking about the HD650, I do encourage you to check this one out as well. With the EQ correction, I feel you really don't gain a whole lot in terms of tuning, at least to my ears. It changes that tonality a little bit with Harman 2013 and 2018 neutral targets. There's improvements for sure, but if you will be mixing, I'd still recommend EQing it and A/B testing different targets. But if you're just listening to music, EQ off is just as good, or it could be one of your A/B flavors. Now, going to the flagship of the trio. And before that, I mentioned that the R70xa that I tested in Kanjam, Singapore, had a bit of a crack to the low end. My unit doesn't have that. Obviously, that's just the unit in the test floor. That's just a bit of an update. So yeah, the R70xa is the only one of the trio that is handcrafted in Japan. It tells a little bit of a different story, for me at least. Out of the box, for studio referencing and mix use, personally, it will take me a bit of time before I use it for mixing. I'm saying if it's new, I just open it up, I'm just listening to it. Just because I'm not used to the type of tuning it has. Don't get me wrong, it's clear, it's detailed, and it sounds fantastic for sure. The vocals on here actually works, and for classical music, it's beautiful. But again, the tuning on this is throwing me off a little bit for mix use. I do find, however, that the longer I use it for listening or referencing, I can appreciate it more and more. I'm not sure if it was the burn-in or maybe I just got used to it. Unlike the R50X that is like mix ready from the get-go, the R70xa, however, for me, leans a little bit more on the hi-fi sound if I'm honest. It's not overly colored. When I say hi-fi, I just mean it's more pleasing to the ears, more of music listening versus critical listening. But both of them I will EQ for mixing, of course. Now, the R70xa with the EQ correction on, at least to my ears, it turns into something else. It becomes a mixing and mastering specialist at just over 400 SGD, like a scalpel if you will. And that's crazy to me. Granted, there will be a bit more competition at this price range, of course, and I can understand that. At the end of it all, it will be up to your preference. But yes, with EQ on, this becomes a sort of a surgical tool. Sound quality-wise, I'm more confident in my mix moves with the corrected 70xa versus R50X. The main difference or upgrade to me is that you can almost count the reverb or delay tail end on the mixes. The detail is spot on. Of course, you can't really count them literally, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I feel like I can almost visualize what type of drum head was used on the recording or what type of kick beater was used on the mix or singer's breath and all that. It's really upfront and very detailed. You can always EQ correct headphones to be aligned more with the target that you prefer. That way you're assured that your mix moves are correct. But you can't really add detail or clarity if it wasn't there in the first place, which is the big advantage of the R70xa against the R50X. I haven't tried binaural surround mixing on these, but it does have a great sense of space, so it might work well with that. But yeah, after correcting your EQ moves and reverb or delay automation, panning and all that, I feel be a bit more precise. It's definitely confidence inspiring. If I have cons for both headphones, that would just be the headband and earpad. I could use a bit more premium and thicker earpads for any of the lineup. But for this price point, what you get here, I think it's fair. I do find that it has a bit of leak, especially when you turn your head. So when you're wearing it like this and you turn sideways, it will leak right here. That's for me, for my head at least. When I turn like this, I feel air coming through that. So the seal isn't like 100% perfect. Earpads would probably improve that. If you could find third-party earpads for the R70xa or the R50x, I think it would be an upgrade. All of these things, of course, will affect the response. I know I said out of the box, the R50X is my instant favorite, but having a bit more time with them, hands down, it's R70xa for me for the win. And I'm thankful this is the one I get to keep. To be honest, at first, I thought about asking Audio-Technica to let me keep the R50X. But yeah, the R70xa for me is really good. Although price-wise, it is about double the R50X, and you have to factor in a good headphone amp because the R70xa has a much higher impedance. The whole trio is super comfortable. Long mix session will be a piece of cake with any of these. Also among the three, I like the top end the best on the R70xa compared to the other two. It's not too bright, but airy enough. And to me, it has the best sense of space and separation among the three reference headphones. For comparison with other brands, I would pick this over any hi-fi man that costs even 3 times more than this. Any of those. Again, to reiterate, for mix use, first and foremost, then music listening. This versus the HD650, my honest pick now will be this. They are about the same price if HD650 is on sale. The difference, however, is the feel. The HD650, wait, let me get it. Yeah, here. This feels a bit more plasticky in terms of overall build and bit loose on some parts, but the pads feel more premium, to be honest, and more plush. This is softer and more conforming to the ear, and I feel it has a better seal. Maybe the shape of it has something to do with that as well, I think, compared to, if you can see the shape, that looks more like an ear compared to this that is just round. Although the LCD X is also round. Oh, it's not actually inside. On the inside, it's more the shape of your ear. And the foam is really premium. It also conforms to the way your head is shaped. All of that affects your experience and how the headphone responds. Now, I thought I'd compare it against my LCD X just to see how it fares. I know it's not a fair comparison, but let's see how it goes. Without EQ for both the LCD X, of course, you get the pros and cons of planar magnetic driver, consistency, accuracy, speed, low distortion, but then is like a brick on your head. You can get used to it, but long mix sessions, though, you probably want to take breaks. When comparing the two, this is more refined. The biggest selling point for me and why I invested in these is the low end. It's just very good. It's not bloated, really clear and defined, very detailed, and you're able to pick apart busy low-end mixes. Separation is great, it takes EQ well, and you could mix on these full-time without speakers, which is what I do. Although, side note, I am actually looking for something that dethrones this. Just because, you know, gear never ends and headphones have been really improving lately, and some of the new ones that I'm looking at, as I mentioned, Aria Unveiled, DCA XO, the new open back they just released a couple of days ago. Maybe Mod House Tungsten DS as well. Also, I'm trying to get my hands on the Audio X1 that one of you guys mentioned. I'm looking to review it as well, but I haven't gotten any response yet. We'll keep you guys updated. But I digress. So, with the LCD X, again, things are just more immediate. It has more of that precise upfront clarity and detail. Top end is more forward a little bit compared to the 70xa. And of course, more low-end presence and punchiness. Vocals are crisp. Sounds complete from the get-go. Sounds more neutral as well. I can mix on these without EQ just because I'm now very familiar with the tuning. It's not that hard as well. So yeah, it performs beautifully as you'd expect, right? Although I wish it has more liveliness on the upper mid-range like this has. But the thing is, this LCD X is about 4 times the price of this. Granted, they are not targeted to the same price Granted, they are not targeted to the same price bracket market, of course, but this is not 4 times better in terms of performance. when comparing against this? I would say, in my very scientific and highly subjective personal opinion, this holds its own and maybe about 75%-ish performance and sound quality of the LCD X. Maybe even closer. Then when you apply EQ correction, it gets even closer. 80-85% performance of that. Roughly around there. Of course, not scientific. It's just my opinion. The hard limit against the LCD X would be the driver, build, and material. Because the LCD X, even when you don't listen to it, just by, holding it, it screams premium. But then again, two different price bracket market. Fit and finish, the feel experience is where it's at, of course. Again, more premium material use and how it conforms more to your ear and head. All of that affects the way they respond to your ears. By the way, for this test, I'm using the Hugo2, which is behind here. I don't know if you can see. And the Mojo2 for headphone DAC amp. Now, going to the measurements, again, take all of these with a grain of salt because everything responds differently to different heads. But anyway, we're using the Harman 2018 linear for this chart. I like using the Harman 2013 target. I know it's a bit colored, but it's a collective average for a reason. So it's not as colored as the 2018 or the 2024 Harman. That's why the 2013 is my preferred EQ target. I also like the Harman 2018 linear for mixing and the diffuse feel target with a 10 dB tilt because those are the more neutral tuning. On this chart, you will see that sharp dip on the 4K. If you compare it with other studio standard open back headphones for mixing, like the HD650, that upper mid looks a little bit more smoother, rounder. The 9K dip that you see there is just standard deviation. R70xa goes beyond target around 7K. And at the top, it's brighter than the HD650, which will be very apparent if you A/B between the two. The top end on the R70xa doesn't bother me, and I'm sensitive to harsh top end. On the low end, it extends a bit more than the HD650. So overall, measurement-wise, I feel R70xa measured really well. Then up against the Focal MG Clear Pro, upper mid-range to top end, everything most of the time is under target. It sort of confirms why it sounds a bit warm on the top end in vocals. It sounds fantastic, just out of the box, it is a bit too warm for my liking. Low end to the mid-range looks more linear, not as wavy as the R70xa. Also, the MG Pro has a bit more energy to the low end, not by much. I'd also pick the R70xa against the clear MG Pro. That one is more premium in terms of material, feel, comfort, driver, and build, but it's also 4 times the price of the R70xa. Now, for the LCD X, to be fair, in terms of upper mid-range, R70xa has more. Based on this chart, it starts to dip on 3.2K, then they flip side on about 5.6K, which when I A/B test between the two, the R70xa felt a bit more midi. That upper mid-range is a bit more forward. In comparison, that's just smoother on the LCD X. But both of them don't really conform to the target here. And if I'm honest, 1 to 6K looks worse than the R70xa based on this chart. I guess that seal ear pads and driver and the way it conforms to my ear does a lot in terms of how it responds and performs. To me, the LCD X is a little bit more smooth on the upper mid to the top end than the R70xa. Changing charts here because I can't find the MM500 on the previous chart. Here we are using diffuse field target, which is fine. And this is how the R70xa looks against target. It looks a little wild, but everything here is fine. And here's how it looks against the MM500, which is dubbed by reviewers as the modern sound of Audeze. Actually, many prefer the MM500 over the LCD-X, to be honest. Engineers and hi-fi heads alike. Again, it's just that I'm used to the LCD-X at this point. That's why I'm hesitant to upgrade. Plus, I need to pay for that upgrade. So yeah, low end is on a steady slope on the MM500. If you look at around 3K, the R70xa seems it has more energy on that area. Then similar dip on the 4K, but the MM500 is closer to target on 5K to 9K. Again, standard deviation on the 9K, which the MM500 has a lot more. Then the rest of the top end, to me, boils down to preference. The MM500 is more expensive than my LCD-X actually, and I don't know if I'm willing to go there yet. Also, to my head, the MM500 is a bit more clampy. It's a lot more clamp force. I prefer heavy than clampy in terms of comfort. If you're not aware, the MM500 is made in collaboration with award-winning producer-engineer Manny Murkin, thus the MM on the moniker. So yeah, with all that said, against higher-end headphones, to me, this To me, this headphones really holds its own, and it's $400+ Singapore dollars. And with the EQ on to whatever target flavor you like, this is really worth looking at. By the way, I'm testing this new mic that's on loan to me. I figure I'll mix this whole video with R70xa. This is just gonna be vocals anyway, but I thought I mentioned. If you're interested, this is the LS-208 from Lauten Audio, if you're interested. I should have put on Audio-Technica mic for this video. I forgot. But anyway, this is already here. So yeah, if it's not obvious at this point, I've grown to enjoy the R70xa. It's a bit more lively than the HD650, wider sense of space, beefier low end, and you can easily pick apart songs and song elements in these. You could also hear if the song is mixed bad or if it has flaws in them. Things are more obvious in that sense, so for mixing and mastering, and to emphasize affordable at that, I would definitely recommend the R70xa. Now, would it replace my main mixing headphone, this big boy? Not really. This lives in the studio until it gets dethroned as my high-end mixing headphones. I'm very familiar with these and I could mix efficiently, but it's very heavy. So the addition of the R70xa to my studio is very much welcome. What I was thinking to do is do my mix here, even finalize the mix here, and then I could master on this. So that sort of becomes a different ear, if you know what I mean. But yeah, final thoughts if you're looking at price to performance. I know at this point I sound like I'm doing a big sales pitch. Not really, you know, just try it for yourself and see how you like them. But yeah, performance, I would say R50x and R70xa. I think they should be the mixing standard for affordable open back headphones for the studio. If you have a bit more budget, go for the R70xa. This is a compelling choice for me. It's really engaging. You get that clarity in detail, but with a bit of soul to it, if you will. Again, you need to spend a bit more for a good amp because the impedance is much higher, even compared to the HD650. But then maybe your audio interface can support it. So just some things for you to think about. That's gonna be it for this video. If you find value in this, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions, or if I missed anything, I'm sure you'd let me know. I'd love to know what headphones you guys are using for mixing. See you guys in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next project.